Hello guys, our topic today is nationalism. The term nationalism is used to explain two phenomena. The first is the behavior of caring about the members' identities of a nation as the members of that nation. The second is the action that the members of a nation try to attain some form of political domination. A nation is a group of people yearning for a common political state, like organization. If such a group of people succeeds in forming a state, the loyalty of the members becomes civic, as opposite to ethics in nature. Nationalism has several types. For instance, classical nationalism is a political program that sees the creation and maintenance of a fully dominant state as a primary duty. Classical nationalists are usually vigilant about the culture they protect and promote and about the attitude people have toward their nation. Another form of it is liberal nationalism. Liberal nationalists see liberal democratic principles and pro-national attitudes as belonging together. Based on Yaltamir, one of the main proponents of this view, liberal nationalism is a kind of social liberalism, which is similar to David Miller's views, who mentions solidaristic community in his book. They both see the feeling of national identity as a feeling that promotes solidarity, which leads to increased social justice. Now my groupmate will talk about the history of nationalism.
Today I want to talk about the history of nationalism. Although nationalism is unique to the modern world, some of its elements can be traced throughout history. American philosopher and historian Hans Kohn wrote in 1944 that nationalism emerged in the 17th century. Before that, people focused on their local town, their kingdom, or their religion. The first roots of nationalism are probably to be founded in the ancient Hebrews, who conceived of themselves as a chosen people, as a people who are superior to all other peoples, and people with a common cultural history. Also, ancient Greek people felt superior to all other peoples and felt a sense of great loyalty to their political community. And I can say that nationalism began to take on stronger implications in the beginning of 20th century. Fascist regimes like those of Mussolini and Hitler used nationalism to subjugate individualism to the needs of the nations. Most notable, perhaps, is the nationalism exhibited during the Second World War by the Nazi Party in Germany. After the Second World War, nationalism spread in Asia and Africa at such a rapid pace that dozens of new nations were formed. Xenophobic separatist movements had not simply limited to newly independent states, and international organizations such as United Nations have reflected efforts to curb radical nationalism. And I can say that today nationalism is continuing. President Trump and also international leaders like Russia's Putin has been widely criticized of resurgence of nationalism. Thanks for watching. See you later.
Hello, my name is Anna. Today I am going to talk about types of nationalism. One of the big questions of nationalism is just how nature a nation is. It can be argued that nations are invented either by the literary invaders of place and the process of state power. Nationalism nevertheless assumes that the people or nations is an entity with sovereign states, sovereign rights, and fundamental unity of blood, culture, and citizenship. We shall now consider these elements of nationalism: sovereignty of the people, ethnic nationalism, and civic nationalism. Ethnic nationalism identifies a close connection between national members linked by race, language, or other cultural attributes. One is a member of the nation by birth and bloodline by genetics and bears and identify that cannot be slowed off by becoming a citizen of another nation or acquired by choice and filling a application form. So, for example, ethnic Germans who for centuries had lived in both had become Russian could apply to rejoin their nation and return to German soil. Civic nationalism is the basis of American, French, and British nationalism. It identified the common historical ties that exist between the people in the nations, ties that can easily be extended to other people through citizenship and their loyalties and obligations associated with acquiring that citizenship. There is no ethnic limitation on who can be a member of nation. Nationalism is therefore not a straightforward ideology. It can wear many faces and display many forms. It can be conservative, fascist, liberal, socialist, even Marxist. All political ideologies have used nationalism for their ends. Nevertheless, nationalism is characterized at the fundamental level by the belief, demand even that each nation should be governed by its own sovereignty state. That's all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Rajab Ali and today I'm gonna talk about the most famous nationalist leaders. Our first famous nationalist leader will be Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and his revolution, Kemalist Revolution. He aimed to create a nation-state from the remnants of the multi-religious and multi-ethnic Ottoman Empire. Kemalist nationalism originates from the social contract theories, especially from the principle advocated by Jean-Jacques Rousseau and his social contract. The Kemalist perception of social contract was affected by dissolution of Ottoman Empire, which was perceived as a product of failure of the Ottoman millet system and the ineffective Ottomanism policy. Kemalist nationalism, after experiencing the Ottoman Empire's breakdown, defined the social contract as its highest ideal. It combines secularism, Calvinism, and a cult of personality of Atatürk. Our second famous nationalist leader will be Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi is perhaps the most widely recognized figure of Indian movement for his role in leading non-violent civil uprising. He organized non-violent protests in the country which gained him fame and support from the people of South Africa. Insofar as Gandhi was the most influential and revered of all leaders who participated in the freedom struggle, that characterization is not misplaced. However, like Washington or Ho Chi Minh, Mahatma Gandhi's political career was shaped and constrained by the society in which he lived. For individuals, even great ones are made by history even as they make history. And our third nationalist leader will be Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte promoted French nationalism based upon the ideals of the French Revolution, such as idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity, and justified French expansion and French military campaigns on the claims that France that had the right to spread the enlightened ideals of French Revolution across the Europe. And our fourth famous nationalist leader will be German Otto von Bismarck. Some historians argue that Bismarck only intended to unify the North German state, and according to this opinion, Bismarck did not begin with a master plan to control all German states. Strains of nationalist feeling after 1866 led to German unification under its own scheme. Economic cooperation meant that unification may have happened eventually anyway. However, other historians believe that unification would not happen without him. He made sure that the army reform took place. He successfully isolated other countries by making them as aggressor. He made Prussia appear to be defender of German state and protect of their rights. Thanks for your attention. I will leave the floor for my other groupmates.
Hello everyone. I am Bashir Hatamov and I will talk about Azerbaijani nationalism. Azerbaijani nationalism is a claim that Azerbaijanis are a nation and the idea of promoting the cultural unity of Azerbaijanis. The process of formation of nationalism in our country began in the second half of 19th century. The ideas of Azerbaijanism were mainly defined by the ideological and founders of Azerbaijan in the early 20th century. And as a result of these ideas, together with the people of Azerbaijan, they established a state called Azerbaijan Democratic Republic. Nationalism in Azerbaijan was liberal nationalism in terms of content and importance. This can be clearly seen in the foreign and domestic policy of Azerbaijan Democratic Republic. His domestic policy was based on the principles of individual freedom, equality, solidarity, and pluralism. Compared to other countries, especially Georgia and Armenia, ethnic nationalism was rather slow to develop among Azerbaijanis, partly due to their self-identification as part of the larger Muslim world rather than a singular ethnocultural nation. And following the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict and its declaration of independence in 1991, however, Azerbaijan has witnessed the ascent of particularly strong Azerbaijan nationalism, including various types of pan-nationalism and irredentism. Thanks for your attention.
Hello, I'm Rufina. Now I will talk about the effects of nationalism. Nations and nationalism are not very old but have had a dramatic effect on how we view the world and each other. Nationalism bonds people together in a way that it's not genetic, not biological, not even having a personal connection with other members of your nations. If a person is nationalist, it means that persons have possible outcomes of strong nationalist feelings such as sense of belonging, conflict, aggression, fear of strangers, cultural and linguistic pride, common purpose, and so on. These are effects of nationalism on people's feelings. And let's talk about effects of nationalism on state and international community, which are also both positive and negative. First, positive. It can take a diverse group of people from different social classes, religious, ethnicities, educational backgrounds, and so on to create a common goal and interest which allows the development of stable nation states. We can also add to positive outcomes of nation states like unites people, promotes pride, promotes sense of identity, and so on. On the other hand, extreme nationalism, which is a negative outcome, can create a superiority, lead to an aggression, conflict, and even genocide. Create conflict between the people, infringes on the rights of other peoples, and also create fear that someone will take them over. The rise and spread of the nationalism gave people a new sense of identity, also led to an increased competition among the nation states. At the beginning of the 20th century, nationalism would play a major role between the nation states, but it was an extremely bloody competition that we now call it World War I, which is the result of the nationalism. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Raf Kasanov and I'm going to talk about modern nationalism. When people talk about modern nationalism, they are thinking of very particular developments which have influenced these other components of nationalism, which are already discussed by my group mates. The most important of what I was interested in is the fact that in European or Western or more widely distributed history, the idea that the people in the last instance of sovereign appears to be approaching a modern nation, and certainly a nation influence modern conception of nationalism. So popular sovereignty is an important component of modern nationalism, but also as a sentence, the regime form is also relevant. The modern constitutional representative republic, or as sometimes called democracy, is also a fundamental component of modern nationalism. It seems that at the same time, the nature of allegiance has changed over time, and modern allegiance is not the same as in 14th century Roman Empire. Modern allegiance seems to be based on the notion of popular consent. So the problem of the nationalism is that all these components of the modern state become involved in the discussion. It's an enormously confused field, and this confusion wasn't alienated but was intensified by the modern academic discussion of nationalism. The most common and proponent element to be written about this aspect of identification and allegiance. It seems that this is potentially tremendously nebulous because the idea of groups and society identified with one another can cover any number of groups, subgroups, and sub-subgroups. The notion of mutual identification or even personal identity or just identity general to capture too little to serve very well as a theory of nationalism. So the identity theory has got off the wrong foot, which ended with this less understanding of nationalism as a result of the nationalism studies that we did before they actually started. That's all. Thank you.